Okay, so in this section, we'll just be creating the sketch for our dagger. The sketch is what we'll use later on to create a three-dimensional solid, which we'll shape and then we'll duplicate into a nice crown. So to start off, we need to figure out how tall the dagger should be. We have already measured our actor's head, and we said the crown's going to be 130 millimeters tall. So we'll create a line off to the side of our sketch that's 130 millimeters tall. This will make it so we have kind of a frame of reference and what scale we need to draw the dagger at. We will then be using the rest of the sketch tools, such as the spline tool and the 3-point arc tool. The spline tool is especially useful for us because it helps us create very curved, organic, and dynamic looking geometry, whereas the 3-point arc tool is a simple tool where we can create an arc using 3 points. We'll use the 3-point arc tool for our handle, and the handle we will only draw half of, so that way later in another section we can revolve it to make a whole handle. Okay, let's get sketching our dagger. The first step is to create a line of a specific length. We'll be using the polyline under the sketch tab to do this. I'll click once to get it started on level with kind of our origin, and then I'll drag the cursor up until it says 130 millimeters, and I'll click again to create the line. Next, I'll select the spline tool from our sketch tab. I click on our grid to select it as our sketch plane. Then I'll create my first anchor on level with the top of our guide. I'll create another anchor and another until I have 3 additional anchors. I'll use these anchors to create our S-curve. Once you want to create the line, simply push enter. Because I'm not creating a specific dagger, I can edit the anchor's positions until I have a curve that I like. I'll create another spline that will become the other edge of our dagger. Make sure to click on the sketch you previously edited, so that way you're telling 123D that you want to continue editing that sketch. And then click on the top of the dagger and create another S-curve. Now I'm going to take this moment to once again rearrange my anchors until I have something that looks like a vicious and pointy dagger. I'll make another similar shape on the inside of the dagger made with 2 of these types of S-curves with the spline tool. This will eventually become a hole that we're going to use to represent his hollow rein. Once more, I like holding my cursor over the last point, then pushing enter on my keyboard to create the curve. That way you can see what the final shape will look like. Because we're not creating a specific dagger, once again, feel free to edit and drag the anchors around until you have a shape that you like. Now we have to close the 2 ends of the dagger. I'll use the polyline tool from the sketch tab. I'll simply select the sketch by highlighting the geometry and then clicking it to select it. Then I'll click on each endpoint to create the line. Now I'll be working on the curve tilt to match the dagger. To do this, I'll use the spline tool again to create an S-curve. I'll want to make sure that this curve is above the bottom of the dagger blade. We're going to try to hide the bottom of the dagger blade inside the hilt. I'll make the second curve for the hilt. This time I need to make sure that the line is below the dagger blade so it doesn't stick out the bottom. Again, I'll take a little bit of time to edit the anchors to make it look a little bit more vicious and twisted. There we go. Now it matches the dagger a little bit better. Let's work on the handle. We only have to draw half the handle because we will revolve it later. So first I'll select the polyline tool from the sketch tab. This line will be the center of our dagger handle, so let's start it on level with the very bottom of our guideline. And then we'll go up into the hilt, click to create that line, and then we'll move our cursor left to create the top of our handle and click again. This might be a little too thick of a handle, but we'll go back and edit it later. And then I'll just push escape to get rid of the tool. We'll use the 3-point arc tool to quickly make a rounded hand grip. I select the sketch I want to edit, click to make the first point, click to make the second, and click to make the third point, which defines the curvature. Let's create the pommel really fast using the polyline tool. I'll select that from our sketch tab, and then I'll start off at the bottom of the handle, and let's just make kind of a diamond shape pommel. There we go, that's pretty good. In order to make the pommel and the handle two separate pieces, I'll add a line with the polyline tool that separates them, so that way when we create 3D parts, they will be two separate parts, so we can color them individually. I'll just drag this here center of the radius around for our handle, and we can make it less wide. And then I'll redo the pommel a little bit and just grab one of its anchors. Alright, that looks pretty good. Lastly, I'll go ahead and delete our guideline because we're finished with it. And there we go. In the next section, we'll make this sketch three-dimensional, and then we'll add on some details using the modify tools.